I am Audrey Ramirez. I am 26 years old, and 3 months ago, I stood across a restaurant table and handed my parents a contract that legally evicted them from their own delusions. But to understand how I ended up holding the deed to the home I grew up in, we have to go back to a blistering Tuesday afternoon in May, the day my parents chose a mimosa brunch over my master's graduation. I am standing in a sea of maroon caps and gowns at a university stadium in Los Angeles. The heat is radiating off the asphalt. Families are clustering together in the shade. Fathers are adjusting their ties and mothers are pinning corsages onto their daughters. I have a VIP parking pass in my pocket. I reserved 2 seats in row F. Throughout the entire 2-hour ceremony, I kept glancing at row F. 2 empty folding chairs. A stranger eventually placed a jacket over my mother's seat. When the dean called my name, Audrey Ramirez, Master of Business Administration with honors, I walked across the stage. There were polite claps from strangers. No cheers, no familiar voices. Just the steady hum of a crowd celebrating other people. Now I am walking to my car in the parking lot. The sun beats down on my shoulders. I pull my phone from my pocket and dial my mother's number. The line rings 3 times. When Sylvia picks up, the noise hits my ear before she even says hello. Heavy bass thumping from a speaker, the sharp clink of glassware, people laughing. "Audrey, honey." "I cannot hear you well." Her voice is breezy light floating over the music. "Where are you?" I ask. The ceremony just ended. There is a brief pause on the line. I hear a chair scrape against a patio floor. "Oh, sweetheart, we told you last week. It is Bianca's birthday. We are at her brunch down in Newport Beach. You know how your sister gets if we miss her special day." I stand frozen with my hand on the door handle of my used Honda. Bianca is turning 23. She is not graduating. She is not achieving a milestone. She is eating eggs Benedict by the ocean. I spent the last 2 years working 60-hour weeks as a junior supply chain analyst, staying awake on black coffee to finish case studies at midnight. "You chose a birthday brunch over my graduation," I say. My voice does not shake. I do not let it. "Do not be dramatic, Audrey." My father Hector's voice shouts into the background of the call. He must be leaning close to the phone. "We will take you to dinner next month. Just relax. Have a good day." The line goes dead. Before I tell you what I did next, if you have ever been the family ATM while someone else received all the applause, please take a moment to hit that like and subscribe button. Drop a comment below telling me where you are watching from and what time it is there. I want to know who is riding with me on this journey. Let us go back to that hot Los Angeles parking lot. I do not cry. Screaming changes nothing in this family. Instead, I lean against my car door, unlock my screen, and open my banking app. For 3 years, I have been the invisible safety net for Hector and Sylvia. I pay their property taxes. I cover their sudden emergency expenses. 6 months ago, I linked a joint credit card to my primary checking account for them to use on gas and groceries. They swore they would respect the limit. Instead, that card funds Bianca's aspiring influencer lifestyle. I tap the account details. The screen loads. Right at the top is a pending charge for $450 at a luxury seafood restaurant in Newport Beach. They are buying champagne and oysters on my dime while skipping the milestone that earned those dimes. I tap the card settings. I scroll down to the security options. I select Deactivate Card. A prompt pops up asking if I am sure. I click Yes. The safety net vanishes. The card is dead wood. I take off my graduation cap, toss it onto the passenger seat, start the engine, and drive back to my modest apartment. 3 hours pass. I am sitting on my couch in sweatpants. My phone vibrates on the coffee table. Then it vibrates again, and again. The screen lights up with a frantic sequence of text messages from Sylvia. "Card declined at the restaurant. Call the bank immediately. We look like fools in front of Bianca's friends. Pick up the phone, Audrey." I sit there and watch the notifications stack up. The panic in their texts is not about me. It is not about missing my moment. It is about the sudden, terrifying realization that the ATM has shut down. For the first time in my adult life, I do not rush to fix their problem. I do not call the bank. I do not offer a transfer. I pick up the phone and type a single reply. Happy birthday to Bianca. You are on your own now. I press send. I turn my phone on silent, order a cheap pizza, and eat it in the quiet of my living room while looking at the diploma resting on my counter. The family expects me to crawl back. They assume I will wake up tomorrow, feel guilty, and turn the money back on. Bianca has never worked a real job, and my parents possess zero financial discipline. They believe my silence is a temporary tantrum, but they do not know what I know. They do not know that my new degree just landed me a role as Director of Global Logistics at a Fortune 500 tech firm in Silicon Valley. They do not know my starting salary is $250,000 with a $75,000 signing bonus. To them, I am still the quiet, dutiful daughter scraping by in a tiny apartment. I tell them nothing. I let them sit in the dark. While I pack my boxes to relocate to a sleek high-rise in San Jose, the financial rot in my parents' household begins to accelerate. Bianca continues to drain them, assuming I will eventually cave and pay the debts they are racking up. I am building an empire in the shadows while they are swiping a dead piece of plastic, unaware that the countdown to their ruin has already begun. The moment I hit send on that text message, my phone goes dark for exactly 12 seconds. 12 seconds of dead silence in my living room. Then the screen lights up. Incoming call from Hector. I do not answer. I watch his contact photo vibrate across the glass. The call rolls to voicemail. 2 seconds later, Sylvia calls. Then Bianca. They are cycling through their phones, standing outside a luxury seafood restaurant in Newport Beach, frantically trying to reach the daughter they ignored all day. They are not calling to apologize for missing my graduation. They are calling because the waiter is standing at their table with a declined black credit card on a silver tray. I open my phone settings. I go to my contact list. I select Hector Ramirez, block caller. I select Sylvia Ramirez, block caller. I select Bianca Ramirez, block caller. I place the phone face down on the kitchen counter. The silence that follows is not heavy. It is the lightest I have felt in 3 years. I pull a stack of flattened cardboard boxes from the hallway closet. I grab a roll of packing tape. The sharp tearing sound of the adhesive echoes off the bare walls of my living room. As I fold the bottom of the first box, I look around the cramped apartment I have called home since college. It is a humble place. The carpet is frayed near the door. The kitchen counter is chipped formica. This apartment is the physical manifestation of the invisible safety net I built for my family. For 36 months, I lived in this cheap unit while working 60 hours a week as a junior supply chain analyst. My job was brutal. I tracked freight containers coming into the port of Long Beach. I managed vendor logistics, rerouted shipments during global delays, and calculated profit margins until the numbers blurred on my dual monitors. I took that high-stress job because it paid well. But I never saw the benefit of that paycheck. My family did. Every time I managed to build a savings cushion, the phone would ring. Hector would call with a crisis. The water heater at their house broke. The transmission on Sylvia's SUV failed. The property taxes were suddenly reassessed, and they were short on cash. They always framed these requests as temporary emergencies. They always promised to pay me back when Hector's next commission check cleared. The checks never cleared. The emergencies never stopped. I fold another moving box and start emptying my bookshelf. I slide textbooks on macroeconomics and corporate finance into the cardboard. I think about last November. Hector called me in a panic on a Tuesday afternoon. He claimed the county was threatening a lien on their house due to unpaid property taxes. He needed $4,000 by the end of the week. I skipped my lunch break, logged into my banking portal, and wired him the money. 3 days later, I was scrolling through social media while eating a sad desk salad. Bianca had posted a new photo. She was sitting in a high-end salon in Beverly Hills, showing off a fresh set of custom hair extensions and unboxing a designer handbag. The caption read, "Early Christmas treats for myself." The bag retailed for exactly $3,800. I did not confront them. I simply closed the app, swallowed my anger, and went back to my spreadsheets. I accepted the role they assigned me. I was the reliable workhorse. Bianca was the show pony. They groomed her for a life of leisure, convinced she was going to marry wealth or become a famous influencer. They groomed me to be the backup generator that kept their lights on. But a backup generator only runs as long as it has fuel. Today, the tank hit zero. By Saturday morning, my apartment is half empty. Stacked boxes line the hallway. Since my phone is blocking their numbers, my parents resort to email. I open my laptop to check my work inbox and find 6 messages from Sylvia. The subject lines read like the stages of grief. The first email arrives at 8 Friday night. The subject is urgent, call me. The body is a frantic demand. Audrey, what did you do to the card? The restaurant manager threatened to call the police. Your father had to beg a friend to Venmo us money. Unblock our numbers right now. The second email arrives at midnight. The subject is, how could you? Sylvia writes a long, rambling paragraph about family loyalty. She says Bianca spent her entire birthday crying because the lunch was ruined. She accuses me of being jealous of my sister. Not a single word about my graduation. Not a single question about my diploma. The last email arrives Saturday at 9 in the morning. The tone shifts from anger to bargaining. Audrey, please turn the card back on. Your father needs to buy groceries. We can talk about whatever is upsetting you next week. I select all 6 emails and drag them to the trash folder. I do not reply. The psychological pressure cooker is working exactly as intended. They are not reflecting on their actions. They are thrashing against the reality of their own financial incompetence. They have no budget. They have no emergency fund. They have no concept of how much their lifestyle actually costs because my paycheck has been quietly subsidizing their delusions for 3 years. I close my laptop and walk into the kitchen. I open the fridge. It is empty except for a bottle of water and a leftover pizza box. I take out a cold slice of pepperoni and sit on the bare floor of my living room. I reach into my tote bag and pull out a thick manila envelope. I slide the documents out and lay them on the carpet next to my pizza. It is my new employment contract. The letterhead belongs to a Fortune 500 tech firm headquartered in Silicon Valley. The title reads, Director of Global Logistics. The compensation line is printed in bold black ink. $250,000 base salary. $75,000 signing bonus. I sit in my frayed sweatpants in a cheap apartment with peeling paint, eating cold pizza, and I look at a piece of paper that guarantees my financial independence. I have secured this future through late nights, relentless networking, and sheer analytical grit. I did it quietly. I did it alone. A sudden, exhilarating sense of freedom washes over me. The air in the room feels different. The invisible tether connecting my bank account to my parents' endless demands has been cleanly severed. They missed the graduation, but they also missed the metamorphosis. They think they are dealing with the quiet, compliant junior analyst who will eventually fold under guilt. They do not know they are now dealing with an executive who views their behavior as an unacceptable liability. Sunday evening arrives. The California sun dips below the horizon, casting long shadows across the empty living room. The moving truck is loaded. I sweep the floors one last time. I lock the front door and drop the keys into the landlord's drop box. I climb into the driver's seat of my car. I put the vehicle in gear and pull out of the parking lot. I merge onto the northbound interstate, leaving Los Angeles and my family behind. I do not leave a forwarding address. I do not update my social media. I vanish into the corporate ecosystem of Northern California, ready to step into my new life. But I know this silence will not last. A family that burns through money without a safety net will inevitably crash. Bianca's expensive habits will not stop just because my credit card is dead. Hector and Sylvia will scramble to maintain their facade. They will search for new ways to fund the illusion. They will try to find me. And when they finally do, the price of my attention will be much higher than they could ever imagine. It has been 42 days since I drove north on the interstate and vanished from my family's radar. I am standing in the living room of my new apartment. The unit is located on the 34th floor of a glass tower in downtown San Jose. The view from my window stretches across the Santa Cruz Mountains, painting the horizon in shades of deep orange and violet as the sun sets. The floors are polished hardwood. The kitchen features marble countertops and stainless steel appliances. There is a concierge at the lobby desk who greets me by my last name every evening. This environment is a sharp departure from the cramped, peeling walls of my old apartment in Los Angeles. I secured this lifestyle through calculated ambition. My new business cards read Director of Global Logistics. My office is a corner suite at the corporate campus of a tech giant. Every morning, I oversee supply chains spanning 3 continents. I manage a team of 50 seasoned coordinators. My signature authorizes freight expenditures that exceed my parents' entire net worth. The corporate ecosystem is ruthless, but it is entirely rational. My colleagues hold degrees from elite institutions. They evaluate me based on performance, strategic vision, and profit margins. No one in this building asks me to fetch coffee. No one expects me to subsidize their personal mistakes. When I present a quarterly forecast in the boardroom, the executives go silent and listen. I am respected for my intellect. This respect sits in stark contrast to the dismissive wave of my mother's hand at a brunch table. 2 weeks ago, my first executive paycheck cleared. The direct deposit notification appeared on my phone screen. I stared at the numbers for a long time. The amount was staggering. It represented more money in a single month than I used to make in half a year. I did not transfer a single cent to my parents. Instead, I drove to a luxury car dealership. I traded in my reliable dented Honda and drove off the lot in a sleek black European sedan. I paid the balance in full. I walked into a designer boutique and purchased 3 tailored suits without checking the price tags. I am building a fortress of financial security brick by brick in total secrecy. To my family, I am still the dutiful, struggling daughter sulking in Southern California. They operate under the assumption that the universe owes them a soft life. My father, Hector, built his identity during a commercial real estate boom 2 decades ago. He closed deals on suburban retail spaces and wore custom Italian suits. He believed a hot streak was a permanent state of being. When the market eventually corrected and lending standards tightened, his income plummeted. But his ego refused to downsize. Hector kept his expensive golf club memberships. Sylvia kept hiring private caterers for her neighborhood dinner parties. They masked their financial decline behind a wall of high-interest debt. They prioritized appearances above actual stability. When the traditional credit card companies finally cut them off, they turned to their oldest daughter. I became their personal bank. I quietly absorbed their utility bills and property taxes while they groomed my younger sister to marry into wealth. Now the personal bank is permanently closed. The theater they built is catching fire. I know this because I created an anonymous social media account solely to observe the fallout of my departure. Bianca's public feed is a real-time documentary of a family running out of fuel. During the first 2 weeks of my silence, her posts were standard fare. She uploaded photos of beach days, expensive cocktails, and new shoes. She assumed I was simply throwing a tantrum over the missed graduation. She believed that once my anger cooled, I would turn the credit card back on and apologize for the inconvenience. But the tone of her digital footprint shifted dramatically by week 3. She posted a photo of a generic coffee cup with a caption complaining about banking glitches. A banking glitch is the universal excuse for a declined debit card. 2 days later, she posted a lengthy video rant about family loyalty. She looked directly into her phone camera and declared that toxic relatives who abandon their loved ones are not true family. She was speaking to her followers, but the message was aimed at me. She was furious because the luxury lifestyle she felt entitled to was suddenly unfunded. The situation escalated from pathetic digital whining to outright desperation. Last Thursday, I received an urgent alert from my credit monitoring service. A hard inquiry appeared on my financial report. Someone had attempted to open a high-yield personal loan using my Social Security number. The application requested $20,000. The origin address matched an IP location in Orange County. Hector was out of options. He tried to forge my digital signature to secure a bridge loan. He failed because I placed a permanent security freeze on my credit file the very day I left Los Angeles. The bank rejected his fraudulent application instantly. I did not call the police. I did not confront him. I simply documented the alert, filed the evidence into a digital folder, and let the silence stretch further. Hector's willingness to commit identity fraud demonstrated the sheer terror gripping their household. The creditors were likely calling their landline every hour. The illusion of their wealth was cracking, and they needed cash immediately to patch the holes. The failure of that fraudulent loan triggered a panic response. My parents realized I was not just ignoring their calls to prove a point. I had fortified my defenses. They needed to find me physically. Yesterday afternoon, I logged into my professional networking profile to review a vendor contract. A new message sat in my inbox. It was from Sarah, the front desk receptionist at my former logistics firm in Los Angeles. Her message was brief but alarming. She wrote that an older couple had entered the corporate lobby that morning. They matched the exact description of Hector and Sylvia. According to Sarah, Hector approached the desk with a charming smile. He claimed he was my father and had lost his phone, politely asking for my current office extension. Sarah informed him that I no longer worked for the company. The charm evaporated instantly. Hector demanded to know my new employer. When Sarah cited corporate privacy policies and refused to disclose any personnel records, Hector became hostile. He leaned over the marble desk and threatened to call the police, claiming I was a missing person in danger. Sylvia attempted a different tactic. She began crying in the center of the lobby. She told Sarah that I was suffering from a severe mental breakdown and desperately needed my family. She pleaded for a forwarding address. Sarah remained professional, threatened to call building security, and my parents eventually retreated out the glass doors. I stare at the message on my computer screen. The quiet sanctuary of my San Jose high-rise suddenly feels like a watchtower. My family does not know about my promotion. They do not know about my $250,000 salary. They only know that their financial ship is sinking fast, and they are desperate to drag me back aboard to bail out the water. I reply to Sarah thanking her for her discretion and log out of the portal. I walk to the floor-to-ceiling window and look down at the grid of city lights below. The hunt has officially begun. They will exhaust every avenue to locate me. They will scour public records. They will contact old college roommates. They will not stop until they have me cornered. I take a sip of my coffee. I am not afraid of the inevitable confrontation. I welcome it. I will let them expend their remaining energy, searching for the obedient girl who paid their bills. When they finally manage to track me down, the shock of who I have become will be their ultimate undoing. It takes 90 days for the silence to break. They do not locate me through brilliant detective work. They find me through sheer geographical coincidence. I fly into Los Angeles in late August for a regional logistics summit. I am staying at a luxury hotel downtown, spending my days in boardrooms negotiating international freight rates. On Tuesday morning, I have 2 hours before my first meeting. I develop a sudden craving for a specific dark roast from a small independent coffee shop near my old apartment. I assume I am safe. I assume the distance I created is permanent. I am wrong. I am sitting at a corner table near the window. I am wearing a charcoal gray tailored suit from a boutique in Milan. A silk blouse, polished leather heels. My laptop is open. I am reviewing quarterly profit margins. The bell above the shop door chimes. I do not look up immediately. I hear the shuffle of footsteps. Then a sharp intake of breath. I raise my eyes from the screen. Hector and Sylvia are standing 10 feet away. They freeze. Their eyes scan my appearance. They register the Italian wool. They register the expensive leather briefcase resting on the chair beside me. The visual evidence directly contradicts the narrative they constructed in their heads. They expected to find a struggling junior analyst. They are looking at an executive. But desperation overrides their confusion. The need for cash is a powerful motivator. They march toward my table. Hector always prided himself on his grooming. During his real estate peak, he spent hundreds of dollars every month on professional haircuts and manicures. He refused to wear anything off the rack. Today, his shirt collar is frayed. His hair is unkempt and thinning. Sylvia, who never left the house without a flawless application of designer makeup, looks pale. Dark circles shadow her eyes. Her posture is slumped. They look like people who have not slept a full night in months. The stress of maintaining an unfunded illusion has aged them a decade in a single summer. There are no hugs. There are no apologies for the missed graduation. There is no polite small talk. Hector places his hands flat on the wooden surface of my table. He leans in. His breath smells like stale coffee and anxiety. Audrey, we have been looking everywhere for you. Where have you been hiding? I slowly close my laptop. I pick up my espresso cup. Hello, Hector, I say quietly. He flinches at the use of his first name. He ignores the boundary. He launches directly into his pitch. His voice is tight and breathless. He claims they are drowning. He says the bank has been calling their landline nonstop. He reaches into his jacket pocket and pulls out a folded piece of paper. He slaps it onto the table between us. It is a credit card statement. The joint account I deactivated 3 months ago. The balance printed at the bottom is $8,000. You need to turn the account back on and clear this today, Hector demands. His tone is not a request. It is an order. He is attempting to assert patriarchal dominance. He thinks he can bully me into submission in a public space. Sylvia takes the empty chair across from me. She attempts to grab my hand. I pull it back and fold my fingers in my lap. She switches tactics. She deploys her classic manipulation strategy. Her voice drops an octave, adopting a wounded, fragile cadence. Audrey, how can you treat your own family like this? Sylvia whispers. Think about all the sacrifices we made for you. We put food on your plate. We paid for your ballet lessons when you were 10. We gave you a roof over your head. You owe us. Family helps family. She frames my basic childhood existence as a financial debt I am legally obligated to repay. She weaponizes my upbringing. I sit perfectly still. I take a slow sip of my espresso. The bitter taste sharpens my focus. I look at them. I do not see my parents. I see a liability. I see an asset sheet bleeding capital. I evaluate them the exact same way I evaluate a failing vendor in my supply chain. They are a bad investment demanding further subsidies. I set my cup down. I pick up the statement. I study the $8,000 figure. What did you spend this on? I ask. My voice is flat, devoid of emotion. Hector shifts his weight. He looks out the window, avoiding my gaze. The economy is tough right now. Cost of living is up. Groceries are expensive. Inflation is killing us. We just need a little help to get by. Sylvia nods vigorously, echoing the buzzwords they heard on the evening news. Yes, everything is just so expensive. I set the paper down. I lean forward, resting my forearms on the table. $8,000 on groceries in 3 weeks, I state. No, you are lying. That is impossible. You are hiding something else. They stare at me. The panic in their eyes spikes. A muscle twitches in Hector's jaw. They realize I am no longer the naive girl who blindly signs checks. I am looking right through their fabricated excuses. You are being selfish. Bianca is terrified, Sylvia blurts out, losing her fragile demeanor. She brings up the golden child, hoping to trigger my guilt. That is the wrong move. I stand up. I smooth the front of my charcoal jacket. I look down at the 2 exhausted people sitting at the table. The cafe around us hums with the noise of baristas steaming milk and customers chatting. No one pays us any attention. We are just an isolated island of broken family dynamics. Let me make something very clear, I say. My words are measured and precise. My financial support was a privilege. It was never a birthright. I am not your retirement plan. I am not an emergency fund for your bad decisions. You lost the privilege of my money the exact moment you decided a mimosa brunch in Newport Beach was more important than my master's diploma. Sylvia starts to cry. Real ugly tears streak down her face. She reaches for a napkin. Hector opens his mouth to shout. He wants to create a scene. He wants to leverage public embarrassment to force my hand. I cut him off before he can form a syllable. I reach into my leather briefcase. I pull out my wallet. I slide a crisp $20 bill from the fold. I drop it directly onto the outstanding credit card statement. To cover your coffees, I say. I pick up my briefcase. I turn my back on them and walk toward the exit. I do not look back. I push through the glass doors and step out into the blinding California sun. The heat hits my face, but I feel entirely cold. I walk to my rental car parked down the street. I unlock the doors and slide into the driver's seat. My heart is beating a steady, calm rhythm. The confrontation did not break me. It validated every decision I made over the last 90 days. But as I sit in the quiet cabin of the vehicle, my analytical mind begins to process the interaction. The numbers do not add up. The math is fundamentally broken. Hector and Sylvia are terrible with money. They overspend on luxury goods and vanity projects. But they do not eat $8,000 worth of groceries in a single month. They do not burn through that much basic living expense. The sheer terror in Hector's voice was not just about a credit card bill. It was the raw, unfiltered panic of a man standing near a powder keg with a lit match. He was sweating, his hands were shaking. You do not shake like that over inflation. They are hemorrhaging cash somewhere else. Something substantial is draining their resources at an unsustainable rate. They are hiding a financial black hole. And Sylvia's sudden mention of Bianca being terrified was the specific clue I needed. I pull my phone from my pocket. I open my contacts. I select the number for Marcus. He is my close friend and a highly skilled corporate lawyer who handles contracts for my firm. He answers on the second ring. I need a favor, I tell him. I need you to run a deep background check on public financial records in Orange County. I need a title search. I need commercial lease registries. I need to know exactly what my younger sister has been doing for the last 6 months. Marcus agrees without asking unnecessary questions. He recognizes the tone in my voice. I put the car in drive and head toward my first corporate meeting. The ambush was supposed to be their victory. They thought they could corner me and force a surrender. Instead, they handed me the exact thread I needed to unravel their entire fabricated life. I am going to pull that thread until the whole structure collapses. 48 hours pass after the cafe encounter. I am sitting at the glass desk in my hotel suite. The city lights of Los Angeles glow outside the window. My laptop chimes with an incoming email from Marcus. The subject line contains 3 words: Public Records Request. Attached is a compressed folder holding 72 pages of legal filings, property records, and business registrations. I do not just walk away from a broken equation, I investigate it. My entire corporate career is built on identifying inefficiencies, tracing missing inventory, and auditing supply chains. I take those exact same analytical skills and turn them toward my own family. I pour a glass of cold water, sit back in the ergonomic chair, and open the first file. The document is a standard business registration filed with the state of California. The entity is a limited liability company. The registered name is Luminous Quartz Wellness. I scan down to the ownership section. The sole managing member is listed as Bianca Ramirez. I stare at my sister's printed name on a state tax document. Bianca has never held a traditional job. Her longest stretch of employment was at a cosmetics counter when she was 20. She quit after 4 shifts because the manager asked her to organize the stockroom. She possesses 0 business acumen, 0 management experience, and 0 understanding of profit and loss margins. Yet, according to the state registry, she is now an entrepreneur. I open the second file. It is a commercial lease agreement. The address jumps off the page. The property is located in the center of West Hollywood. It is one of the most expensive retail districts in the country. The floor plan attached to the lease details a 2,000 square foot storefront. I read the contract terms. It is an ironclad triple net lease. In commercial real estate, a triple net lease means the tenant is responsible for everything: base rent, property taxes, building insurance, and all structural maintenance. The monthly obligation is astronomical. The landlord locked the tenant into a binding 5-year term. There is no early termination clause. I scroll to the final page to view the signatures. Bianca signed on the tenant line. Her signature is looped and stylized like an autograph. But commercial landlords do not hand over premium West Hollywood retail space to a 23-year-old girl with no verified income. They require a safety net. They require a guarantor. I look at the bottom of the page. The guarantor's signature belongs to Hector Ramirez. The reality of that signature is chilling. By signing as the guarantor, Hector legally pledged his personal assets to back the lease. If the business fails, the landlord can pursue him for the remaining balance of the 5-year contract. He anchored his entire financial future to a vanity project run by a girl who treats life like a continuous vacation. I open my web browser and log back into the portal for the deactivated joint credit card. I pull the raw transaction data from the month of May. I look closely at the specific merchant identification codes. During the cafe ambush, Hector looked me in the eye and claimed the $8,000 balance was for groceries. He blamed inflation and the rising cost of basic living. I cross-referenced the merchant code on the final $8,000 charge. The vendor is not a supermarket, it is not a utility company. The vendor is a high-end architectural stone supplier. Bianca did not buy food. She used my credit card to purchase custom imported marble countertops for her wellness boutique. She swiped my money to build pristine display cases for her healing crystals. My parents sat across from me sipping coffee I paid for and lied to my face. They tried to guilt-trip me over their survival when in reality they were demanding I fund my sister's interior decorating budget. I need visual confirmation. I need to see the physical manifestation of this financial disaster. The next afternoon, I finish a logistics negotiation early. I walk out of the corporate center, get into my rental car, and drive straight to West Hollywood. I find the address on a busy, trendy street lined with designer clothing stores and artisan cafes. I park my car across the street and sit behind the steering wheel. I look through the windshield at luminous quartz wellness. The storefront features floor-to-ceiling glass windows. The branding is gold leaf lettering. Inside the shop is a masterclass in aesthetic waste. The custom marble countertops gleam under expensive track lighting. Shelves are lined with imported amethyst geodes, overpriced essential oils, and wellness journals. It looks like an influencer photograph brought to life. It is also entirely empty. I sit in my car for a full hour. I watch the foot traffic on the sidewalk. Hundreds of people walk past the gold leaf window. Not a single person opens the door. Inside, a young employee stands behind the marble register scrolling on her phone. Bianca is nowhere to be seen. She is the chief executive officer, but she is not even on the premises during peak afternoon retail hours. I pull a notepad from my briefcase. I start running the numbers. I calculate the estimated base rent for a 2,000 square foot space in this zip code. I add the cost of the employee's hourly wage. I estimate the utility bills, the business insurance, and the wholesale cost of the dead inventory sitting on the shelves. The burn rate is catastrophic. The boutique is hemorrhaging cash every single minute the lights are on. They are generating zero revenue while carrying exorbitant overhead. I drop the pen onto the passenger seat. The conflict shifts shape in my mind. My parents did not ambush me at the coffee shop because they were hungry. They ambushed me because the boutique accounts were overdrawn. They were secretly trying to make me the unwitting angel investor for the golden child's inevitable bankruptcy. If I had paid the $8,000, they would have returned next month asking for $12,000. They would have drained my salary to keep Bianca's illusion alive until my own accounts hit zero. I start the engine of my rental car. I pull away from the curb, leaving the empty crystal shop behind. The anger I felt in the cafe is replaced by a cold, calculating clarity. But as I drive back toward my hotel, a new variable enters the equation. A commercial lease in West Hollywood requires a substantial upfront deposit. Typically, landlords demand first month, last month, and a security deposit equal to a full quarter of rent. Furthermore, the tenant improvements, the marble counters, the gold lettering, and the track lighting required significant initial capital. My credit card only covered the final $8,000. Where did Hector get the initial startup funds? His real estate commissions dried up years ago. He had no liquid savings. He had no traditional credit lines left. You cannot lease a luxury commercial space with good intentions. You need a large sum of verified cash. I pull into the hotel parking garage. I turn off the engine, but I do not get out of the car. My phone vibrates in the center console. It is a text message from Marcus. I found something else, the message reads. Check your email. This one is bad. I pick up my phone and open my inbox. There is a new file waiting for me. I tap the screen to download the document. The financial hole is much deeper than a commercial lease. The truth about how Hector funded Bianca's dream is about to break the family apart permanently. I sit in the driver's seat of my rental car in the hotel parking garage and open the email Marcus sent. This is the exact moment the scope of my family's financial disaster crystallizes. The file attached to his message is a recorded deed of trust from the county clerk. I read the legal jargon illuminating the screen. 3 months ago, I thought my parents were simply drowning in retail debt. I thought they were sinking under the weight of an ironclad commercial lease for my sister. The truth is far more structural. Hector did not just guarantee a storefront for Bianca. He needed liquid capital to purchase the initial wholesale inventory. He needed cash to buy the imported amethyst geodes, the premium essential oils, the custom display cases, and the aesthetic packaging that sat gathering dust in West Hollywood. My father had zero liquid savings. He had no traditional credit lines remaining. But he possessed one major asset. He owned his primary residence free and clear. He and Sylvia paid off their mortgage years ago during a stronger economic cycle. The document on my screen proves that Hector walked into a regional bank and took out a $50,000 home equity line of credit against his house. He handed the entire sum of cash directly to Bianca. He transformed the roof over their heads into a casino chip and pushed it across the table to a 23-year-old girl who treats life like a perpetual vacation. I close the file, start the engine, and drive out of the parking garage. I do not intervene. I do not call them to warn them of their own stupidity. I fly back to Silicon Valley the next morning and resume my life. I know the math. A home equity line of credit requires monthly service payments. Bianca is generating zero revenue. She cannot service the debt. The trap is set. All I have to do is wait for the oxygen to run out in their household. The seasons change. Autumn sweeps across Northern California. My career accelerates at a staggering pace. I am managing global shipping routes, optimizing freight logistics across the Pacific, and earning performance bonuses that dwarf my previous salary. I buy original artwork for my high-rise apartment. I sleep a full 8 hours every night. I spend October and November operating in a state of profound peace. The digital block on my personal phone holds strong. My parents remain sealed off from my reality. Then comes a Tuesday afternoon in early December. It has been exactly 6 months since I stood in that hot parking lot on my graduation day. I am sitting in my corner office in San Jose. Rain is lashing against the floor-to-ceiling windows. I am analyzing a supply chain bottleneck near the Port of Seattle. My desk phone rings. This is not my personal cell phone. This is the direct corporate line wired into my executive suite. Very few people have this extension. I assume it is a vendor. I pick up the receiver. Audrey, please do not hang up. The voice belongs to Hector. He bypassed my digital blockade by calling the corporate switchboard. He must have used a fake name and claimed a critical freight emergency to bypass the reception desk. I do not speak. I hold the receiver to my ear and listen to the sound of his breathing. It is shallow and erratic. The booming, arrogant tone he wielded at the Los Angeles coffee shop is entirely gone. The patriarchal dominance has evaporated. His voice is a hollow, desperate rasp. It is the sound of a man standing on the edge of a sheer drop. Audrey, please. Hector begs into the phone. We need you. We are going to lose the house. We need $50,000 by Friday or the bank is foreclosing. Please say something. We have nowhere else to go. I press the red button on the console and disconnect the line. I place the receiver back on its cradle. The office is quiet except for the rain hitting the glass. $50,000. The sheer audacity of the number hangs in the climate-controlled air. This is no longer about a declined credit card at a birthday brunch. This is no longer about covering a utility bill or paying for groceries. This is about shelter. I pick up my cell phone and dial Marcus. He answers immediately. I need an emergency update on the Los Angeles property, I tell him. Check the county registry for a notice of default. Find out exactly where the foreclosure timeline stands. Give me 10 minutes, Marcus says. I spend those 10 minutes staring at the logistical map on my computer monitor. I compartmentalize the family crisis. I do not feel a surge of pity. I do not feel panic. I feel the cold satisfaction of an auditor watching a predictable equation balance itself out. My phone rings. Marcus is on the line. You called it perfectly, he says. The notice of default was filed 90 days ago. The statutory grace period expired this morning. Hector and Sylvia missed 3 consecutive payments on the home equity line. The bank initiated the final foreclosure process. They have a public auction scheduled for next month, but if they do not produce the $50,000 to satisfy the arrears and penalty fees by close of business this Friday, the asset is gone. The bank will seize the property. They will be evicted. I thank Marcus for the confirmation and end the call. I stand up and walk to the window. I look down at the wet streets of San Jose. The escalating conflict has reached its absolute peak. My parents are facing the ultimate devastating consequence of their own entitlement. Bianca defaulted on her commercial rent, and she defaulted on the home equity payments. She destroyed their financial foundation in less than half a year. Yet instead of holding their golden child accountable, they turned to the daughter they discarded. They tracked down my corporate phone line to demand a bailout. They expect me to step in and purchase their salvation. They want me to hand over $50,000 in cash to erase their mistakes. They want me to absorb the cost of Bianca's vanity so she can maintain her innocence and they can maintain their comfort. They are not asking for a handout. They are asking me to buy back the roof over their heads, a roof they willfully gambled away. I walk back to my desk. I open a new document on my computer. I am not going to write them a check. I am not going to wire them funds so they can survive another 6 months before bankrupting themselves again. They have proven they lack the capacity to manage assets. If they want my money to save their shelter, they are going to surrender the shelter to me. I type a brief email to Marcus. I instruct him to draft a very specific ironclad legal contract. I outline the terms of the asset transfer. I detail the stipulations regarding my sister. I prepare the weapon that will end this cycle of financial abuse permanently. I hit send. I pick up my cell phone. I unblock Sylvia's number. I type a single text message. I will meet you for dinner tomorrow night. Bring Bianca. I press send and block the number again. I turn off my computer, grab my briefcase, and walk out of the office. The storm outside is intensifying, but my mind is perfectly clear. I am driving down the coast tomorrow. I am going to sit across from them one last time, and I am going to present them with a choice that will alter the power dynamic of our family forever. 2 full days pass. 48 hours of unchecked panic in Los Angeles. Hector's voicemail sits in my deleted folder, but the echo of his voice remains. I do not return the call. I do not send a text to confirm I received his plea. I let the silence stretch across the state. In corporate negotiations, silence is a vacuum. The other party will always rush to fill it, exposing their vulnerabilities in the process. Hector and Sylvia are drowning in that vacuum. They are watching the clock tick down toward Friday, terrified that their only lifeline has vanished. I spend my Wednesday evening in my home office. The San Jose city lights reflect off the glass desk. I am not crying. I am not agonizing over their fate. I am compiling data. I open a fresh spreadsheet. I name the file Ramirez Audit. I pull my banking records from the past 36 months. Line by line, I document every single transfer, every paid utility bill, every emergency transmission repair, every property tax installment I covered. Creating this document is an exercise in historical accounting. I see the weeks I ate cheap noodles to cover Sylvia's unexpected dental surgery. I see the months I walked to work because I wired Hector my car repair fund to fix the roof on their house. I format the cells. I highlight the totals. The final number sitting at the bottom of the column is $42,400. That is the true cost of being the reliable daughter. Growing up, arguments in our house were always theatrical. Sylvia used tears as a weapon. Hector used volume. They controlled the narrative by escalating the emotional temperature of the room until everyone else surrendered. I learned early on that fighting them with feelings was a losing battle. They could always out-yell and out-cry me. But data does not yell. Data does not cry. Numbers are immune to guilt trips. I hit print. The machine hums, spitting out 3 pages of irrefutable proof. Next, I retrieve the documents Marcus sent me. I print the public filing of the home equity line of credit. I print the notice of default from the county clerk. I print the 5-year commercial lease for Luminous Quartz Wellness, complete with Hector's signature on the guarantor line. I arrange the papers in chronological order. I place the spreadsheet on top. I slide the entire stack into a crisp, unmarked manila folder. I weigh it in my hands. It feels remarkably light for something that holds the power to dismantle a family hierarchy. Thursday morning arrives. The deadline for the bank foreclosure is exactly 24 hours away. I pick up my cell phone. I unblock Sylvia's number. I open a new message thread. I type 2 sentences. I will meet you for dinner tonight at 7. Bring Bianca. I press send. I do not ask if they are free. I do not offer options. I dictate the terms. Within 60 seconds, 3 gray typing bubbles appear on the screen. Sylvia replies with a chaotic string of gratitude and questions. I do not respond. I block the number again. I chose the venue with tactical precision. It is a high-end restaurant located on a quiet street in Beverly Hills. The lighting is dim. The tables are spaced far apart to ensure privacy for high-profile clients. The clientele consists of industry executives and wealth managers. The dress code is strictly enforced. It is not the kind of place where you can cause a scene. It is neutral ground. If I confronted them at their house, Hector would retreat to his patriarchal authority. He would pace the living room and treat me like a disobedient child. If we met at a casual diner, Sylvia would deploy her theatrical sobbing to attract sympathy from the waitstaff. Beverly Hills enforces decorum. The environment will suffocate their usual tactics. It is intimate enough for a reckoning, but public enough to prevent a screaming match. They will be forced to sit quietly and listen. I leave the office at noon. I walk down to the executive parking garage. I approach my new black European sedan. The vehicle is a direct perk of my signing bonus, a machine built for smooth performance and quiet power. I slide into the driver's seat. The leather is pristine. I place the manila folder on the passenger seat. I start the engine and navigate toward the coastal highway. The drive from Silicon Valley to Los Angeles takes several hours. I do not listen to the radio. I do not listen to podcasts. I listen to the hum of the tires against the asphalt. The Pacific Ocean stretches out to my right, a vast expanse of dark blue water under a clear autumn sky. The transition from the rugged cliffs of the Central Coast to the sprawling concrete of Southern California mirrors the shift in my mindset. As the miles pass, I analyze the physiological changes in my own body. My shoulders are relaxed. My grip on the steering wheel is loose. My breathing is steady. A year ago, driving south to deal with my parents would have triggered a severe tension headache. I would have spent the entire journey rehearsing apologies for things I did not do. I would have arrived at their doorstep anxious, eager to earn a scrap of their approval, willing to empty my wallet for a fake smile. That desperate daughter no longer exists. She died in the parking lot of a university stadium while listening to the background noise of a mimosa brunch. The woman driving this car is a logistics director. She evaluates risks. She neutralizes liabilities. She operates on logic and leverage. The cold, detached clarity I feel is intoxicating. My parents believe I am driving down to write them a check. They believe the dinner is a mere formality, a stage for them to perform their apologies before I hand over my hard-earned capital to save their house. They think they are meeting an automated teller machine. They do not realize they are meeting the executioner of their financial delusions. The sun begins to set as I enter the city limits of Los Angeles. The familiar smog hangs over the skyline, filtering the fading light into a hazy orange glow. I navigate through the heavy evening traffic, exiting the freeway and heading toward Beverly Hills. The streets become cleaner. The storefronts become more expensive. I pull up to the restaurant exactly 10 minutes before 7. A uniformed valet opens my door. I step out onto the curb. I am wearing a sharp navy blazer, a white silk shirt, and tailored trousers. I grab the manila folder from the passenger seat. I hand the valet my keys and turn toward the heavy glass doors of the establishment. The trap is fully set. All they have to do is sit down. I step through the heavy glass doors of the restaurant, and the noise of the city instantly vanishes. The interior is a sanctuary of low-lighting polished mahogany and acoustic design meant to absorb sound. Conversations here are muted and private. Men in tailored suits and women in understated designer dresses sit in curved leather booths. This is a room where wealthy people conduct discreet business. I requested a table in the back corner far away from the main dining floor. The host checks my name, nods politely, and leads me through the maze of tables. I spot my family before they see me. Hector is sitting on the outside of the booth. He is wearing a dark suit jacket, but the garment hangs loosely on his frame. He looks deflated. His knee is bouncing beneath the table, a rapid, nervous rhythm vibrating through his entire body. He is tapping his index finger against the rim of his water glass. Sylvia sits next to him. She is wearing a stiff cocktail dress, nervously adjusting a pearl necklace over her collarbone. Across from them sits Bianca. My younger sister looks entirely disconnected from the reality of her environment. She is slumped against the leather upholstery, her thumbs flying rapidly across her smartphone screen. Her expression is a mask of pure irritation. She is 23 years old, she has bankrupted her parents, and she is currently pouting because she was forced to attend a dinner she did not choose. She has no idea that the bank is preparing to seize her childhood bedroom tomorrow morning. Her ignorance is a luxury manufactured and funded by Hector and Sylvia. I approach the table. Sylvia spots me first. Her eyes widen, and she instantly switches into her maternal performance. She stands up, stretching her arms outward, painting a bright, brittle smile on her face. "Audrey, sweetheart, it is so wonderful to see you," Sylvia says. Her voice is pitched slightly too high. She steps forward to initiate an embrace. I do not step forward. I stand perfectly still, holding my leather briefcase by my side. I look at her outstretched arms. I look at her forced smile. I do not offer a polite response. The air between us turns to ice. Sylvia realizes I am not going to play the role of the forgiving daughter. Her smile falters. She lowers her arms, smooths the front of her dress, and sits back down in the booth. I slide into the seat opposite them. I place my briefcase on the leather cushion next to me. "Hello," I say quietly. A waiter dressed in a crisp white shirt and a black tie approaches our table. He hands each of us a thick leather-bound menu. He asks if we would like to start with beverages or appetizers. Hector immediately clears his throat and assumes his historical position as the patriarch providing for his family. He does not ask if I am hungry. He does not ask what I prefer. He orders the Grand Seafood Tower, a plate of Wagyu beef carpaccio, and a bottle of sparkling mineral water imported from Italy. He orders these expensive items with the casual confidence of a man who possesses a limitless bank account. I watch him place the order. This behavior is a fundamental symptom of his financial disease. During my teenage years, Hector would take us to high-end steakhouses whenever he closed a minor real estate deal. He would order reserve wine and tip the valet a $50 bill. He desperately needed the restaurant staff to perceive him as a titan of industry. 2 days later, he would scream at the utility company over a late fee because his checking account was overdrawn. He has always prioritized the performance of wealth over the actual reality of stability. Tonight is no different. He is less than 24 hours away from absolute foreclosure, yet he is ordering raw Wagyu. He is doing this because he assumes my black credit card will emerge at the end of the meal to cover the tab. The waiter turns to me. I close my menu and hand it back to him. "I will just have a black coffee," I state. Bianca finally looks up from her glowing screen. She glares at me across the table. "Why are you acting so weird?" she asks. Her tone is sharp and defensive. "I am missing a party in the hills for this. You have been ignoring Mom and Dad for months, and now you drag us to Beverly Hills just to drink coffee." I look directly into my sister's eyes. I do not raise my voice. Your party can wait, Bianca. She rolls her eyes, sighs heavily, and returns her attention to her phone. Hector shoots Sylvia a panicked look. They know the atmosphere is wrong. They expected me to be nervous. They expected me to be seeking their validation. Instead, I am observing them with the detached scrutiny of a corporate auditor inspecting a failing warehouse. The waiter returns with the appetizers. He places the towering arrangement of ice and seafood in the center of the table. Hector and Sylvia begin to eat, but their movements are rigid. They chew their food without tasting it. The silence at our table becomes suffocating. It contrasts sharply with the low, pleasant murmur of the wealthy patrons surrounding us. Sylvia attempts to break the tension with trivial small talk. She asks about the traffic on the coastal highway. She asks if I have decorated my new apartment yet. I give her one-word answers. Yes. No. Fine. The conversational well dries up within 3 minutes. They realize the old manipulation scripts are entirely useless. I am not going to fill the silence to make them feel comfortable. I let them sit in the awkward, heavy reality of their impending ruin. Before I tell you what happened at this table, I need to know what you would do. Drop a 1 in the comments if you think I should write the check and save them. Drop a 2 if you think I should walk away and let the bank take the house. Let us see who is riding with me on Hazel Tells Stories. Okay, back to the dinner. The waiter returns and clears the empty plates. He uses a small metal tool to sweep a few stray crumbs from the white linen tablecloth. He asks if we are ready to order our main courses. I decline. Hector declines. Sylvia shakes her head. Bianca does not look up. The waiter bows his head slightly and walks away, leaving us alone with our water glasses. The preamble is officially over. The expensive appetizers have been consumed. The theater has closed. There are no more distractions available on the table. Hector reaches for his napkin. He wipes his mouth, folds the cloth carefully, and places it next to his silverware. He adjusts his suit collar. He rests his forearms on the table and leans forward. I watch his hands. His fingers are trembling. He tries to hide the tremor by clasping his hands tightly together, interlocking his knuckles until the skin turns white. He takes a deep, ragged breath. He is physically gathering his courage. He prepares to launch the pitch that will determine the rest of their lives. Hector takes a slow sip of his mineral water. The ice clinks against the crystal glass. He clears his throat again, a sharp sound that cuts through the low murmur of the dining room. He unclasps his hands and places his palms flat on the white linen tablecloth. He adjusts his posture, pulling his shoulders back, attempting to summon the ghost of his former authority. Audrey, I am going to be straight with you, Hector begins. That is his first lie of the evening. He launches into a rehearsed monologue. His voice carries the cadence of a salesman pitching a bad investment to a hesitant buyer. He tells me the national economy has taken a sudden downturn. He claims the commercial real estate market is experiencing a severe correction, and his investment portfolio took a direct hit. He uses phrases like temporary liquidity issue and short-term cash flow interruption. He paints a picture of a successful man who was simply caught off guard by unpredictable global markets. He does not mention the Crystal Boutique. He does not mention the West Hollywood lease. He does not mention the home equity line of credit he drained to buy imported marble. We just need a bridge loan, Hector says, leaning closer across the table. It is a temporary measure. We need $50,000 to secure our assets until the market rebounds. We will pay you back with interest by the end of the year. I give you my word. He says the number quickly. $50,000. He tries to slip it past my defenses, treating it like a trivial sum between peers. He watches my face, waiting for a reaction. He is waiting for the obedient daughter to gasp, nod sympathetically, and ask how to wire the funds. I do not blink. I do not change my expression. I look at him with the same detached focus I use when reviewing a fraudulent vendor invoice. Before the silence can stretch too far, Sylvia deploys her part of the strategy. She is the emotional closer. She reaches across the table, her hand trembling slightly, hovering near my coffee cup, but not quite touching me. Her eyes glisten right on cue. The tears pool in her lower lashes, threatening to spill over. It is a performance she perfected decades ago. We would never ask if it was not an absolute emergency, Sylvia whispers. Her voice cracks perfectly on the final word. The bank is being unreasonable. They are threatening our home, Audrey, the house you grew up in. She shifts the tactic from business to duty. She opens the invisible ledger she has kept since the day I was born. Growing up, love in our household was always transactional. When I was 16 and landed my first part-time job at a grocery store, Sylvia demanded 30% of my meager paycheck. She called it a household contribution. She claimed it was to cover the water and electricity I consumed. Meanwhile, she used Hector's credit cards to buy Bianca designer jeans and send her to expensive summer camps. My existence was a debt I was expected to constantly repay. Family must protect family. Sylvia continues dabbing the corner of her eye with a cloth napkin. We sacrificed everything to raise you. We put a roof over your head. We made sure you had the tools to succeed. Now that you are doing so well, we need you to remember where you came from. We need you to honor your parents. She frames the $50,000 as back rent for my childhood. She implies that my current corporate success is a direct result of their parenting rather than the result of my own grueling work ethic. She expects me to write a check to purchase their love, just like I have done for the last 3 years. I turn my gaze away from my mother's calculated tears. I look across the table at my younger sister. Bianca has not participated in the conversation. She has not offered a word of support to her frantic parents. She is staring at her smartphone, her thumbs moving rapidly as she replies to a text message. She looks deeply inconvenienced by the tears and the tension. She is 23 years old, wearing a silk blouse funded by the very debt that is about to render her homeless, and she is entirely disconnected from the fallout. And what does Bianca think about this, I ask. My voice is calm and level. The question cuts through Sylvia's sobbing. Hector stiffens. Bianca stops typing. She slowly lowers her phone and looks at me. She narrows her eyes, annoyed that she is being pulled into a conversation she deems beneath her. She sighs loudly, rolling her eyes toward the dim ceiling of the restaurant. Look, Audrey, you make good money, Bianca says. Her tone is flippant, dismissive. Just help Mom and Dad out. It is not a big deal. The sheer entitlement of her statement hangs over the table. It is breathtaking. She just told me to hand over $50,000 with the same casual annoyance someone might use to ask for a glass of water. I study her face. I realize in this exact moment that Hector and Sylvia have completely insulated her from the truth. Bianca does not know about the notice of default. She does not know about the impending foreclosure. She likely believes her crystal boutique is simply experiencing a slow season. My parents shielded their golden child from the consequences of her own failure. They absorbed the panic, took the blame, and drove to Beverly Hills to extort their eldest daughter, just so Bianca could keep believing she is a successful entrepreneur. Or perhaps Bianca does know the truth, and she simply does not care. Perhaps she genuinely believes it is my inherent duty to sweep up her messes. Either reality points to a fundamentally broken human being. I do not argue with her. I do not point out the absurdity of her statement. I return my gaze to Hector. I listen in unbroken silence. The lack of my response creates a vacuum at the table. People who are lying hate silence. It makes them feel exposed. It forces them to keep talking to fill the empty air, and when they keep talking, they make mistakes. Hector starts repeating himself. He talks about the housing market. He promises again to pay me back. He adds a new lie about a pending commercial deal that will close next month and wipe out the debt. His voice grows slightly louder, then softer, unable to find a confident pitch. Sylvia adds more tears. She lists my childhood milestones. She brings up my high school graduation, conveniently ignoring the master's degree ceremony she skipped 6 months ago. She talks about how hard my father works. She begs me not to let them end up on the street. I let them exhaust every single excuse. I let them empty their arsenal of guilt trips. I listen as they weave a tangled web of contradictions, blaming the economy, blaming the banks, blaming bad luck, blaming everything except the commercial lease in West Hollywood. I give them the space to reveal the full scope of their delusion. Eventually, they run out of words. The adrenaline of the pitch fades. They realize they have played all their cards. and I have not shown a single reaction. The table goes dead quiet. The only sound is the ambient jazz music playing softly through the restaurant speakers. Hector stares at me, his chest heaving slightly. Sylvia holds her napkin in her lap, her fake tears drying up as genuine anxiety begins to set in. Bianca looks back down at her phone, bored by the silence. They are waiting for my submission. They expect me to sigh, express my disappointment, and ask for the bank routing numbers. They expect the familiar dynamic to assert itself. I do not sigh. I do not ask for their banking details. I reach down beside me. I place my hand inside my designer tote bag. My fingers wrap around the smooth paper of the manila folder. I pull it out and set it on my lap. The pitch is over. The reality check is about to begin. I lift the manila folder from my lap. The cardboard is stiff and cool against my fingertips. I lift it above the edge of the table and place it directly in the center, right between the crystal water glasses and the untouched appetizer plates. The sound it makes against the white linen tablecloth is soft, yet it seems to silence the immediate space around us. Hector leans forward. His eyebrows furrow in confusion. He is looking at the blank cover, trying to deduce its contents. He expects to see a personal checkbook. He expects to see a pen. He expects me to slide a blank bank draft across the table so he can fill in the amount required to save his life. He does not understand why I am presenting a legal file. I look him directly in the eyes. I am not giving you a bridge loan, I say quietly. The words slice through the air. Hector physically reacts as if he has been struck. His shoulders drop. The artificial confidence he projected moments ago vanishes, leaving behind a hollow, terrified shell. His jaw goes slack. The rejection is absolute, and he recognizes there is no room for negotiation in my tone. But I do know exactly why you are losing the house, I continue. I flip the cover of the folder open. I place my hand flat against the stack of papers inside. The tactile sensation of the printed pages grounds me. I slide the first document out from the pile. It is the public filing of the $50,000 home equity line of credit. I push it across the smooth tablecloth until it stops directly in front of my father. Hector looks down. He recognizes the official county seal stamped at the top of the page. He recognizes his own signature near the bottom. My father bought that property in 1998. It was a 4-bedroom colonial house in a respectable subdivision. During his real estate peak, he paid off the 30-year mortgage in less than a decade. He used to host summer barbecues just to boast to the neighbors that he owned the land free and clear. That house was his ultimate trophy. It was his proof that he was a successful provider. He wore that zero balance like a badge of honor to cover up his other insecurities. Now the document resting next to his dinner plate proves he gambled his only trophy away on a desperate, foolish bet. I pull the second document from the folder. It is the formal default notice from the commercial landlord in West Hollywood. I slide this paper towards Sylvia. She blinks, her eyes darting across the bold legal text. She sees the address of the Crystal Boutique. She sees the outstanding balance of the broken lease. The color drains from her cheeks in a matter of seconds. Her skin takes on a pale, ashen hue. She lifts a trembling hand and covers her mouth, stifling a gasp. Hector stares at the papers as if they are coated in toxic chemicals. He does not reach out to touch them. He keeps his hands pinned to his lap, paralyzing himself in the face of his own exposed lies. The sound of rapid typing stops. Bianca finally pauses her frantic texting. The screen of her smartphone dims and goes black. She slowly lowers the device, placing it face down on the table. She looks at the legal documents, then looks at me. Her jaw drops. She stares at the default notice. The West Hollywood address is printed in bold ink. The gold leaf lettering she designed for her storefront was paid for by the very debt that is about to render her parents homeless. The protective bubble her parents meticulously maintained for her entire life just popped. Bianca never grasped the concept of consequences. When she was in high school, she could never wake up before 10 in the morning. Sylvia used to write fake sick notes to excuse her from first-period classes, shielding her from detention and academic failure. They trained her to believe the rules of society did not apply to her. They taught her that someone else would always step in to sweep up her messes and fund her lifestyle. They shielded her from the truth of their declining wealth so she could play the role of a carefree socialite. I looked directly at my father. The jazz music playing through the restaurant speakers feels entirely disconnected from the gravity at our table. You did not lose your retirement to the economy, Dad, I state. My voice is steady, cutting clearly through the ambient noise of the room. You mortgaged your paid-off home to fund a crystal shop for a girl who cannot even wake up before noon, and now you want me to pay the debt. Hector opens his mouth, but no sound comes out. His vocal cords fail him. He looks at Sylvia for support, but she is staring blankly at the default notice, realizing the depth of the hole they dug. The waiter walks past our booth carrying a tray of champagne glasses, oblivious to the fact that a family legacy is collapsing just inches away. I reach into the manila folder one last time. I extract the final item. It is the 3-page spreadsheet I compiled in my home office. The Ramirez audit. The columns are neat, organized, and ruthless. I slide the stapled packet across the table. It rests right beside the plate of Wagyu beef they ordered with my presumed money. I do not let them look away. I guide their attention to the numbers. The spreadsheet lists every utility bill I paid, every property tax installment I covered, and every fabricated emergency they used to extract cash from my bank account. I do not just present the final number, I force them to confront the specific lies. I point to the second page of the audit. Look at row 14, I command. November 12th, you called me in a panic, claiming the county issued a tax lien on the house. I wired you $4,000 that same afternoon. I tap the paper. The county never issued a lien. You took my emergency wire and used it to pay the initial security deposit on Bianca's commercial lease. I point to another row. March 3rd, $2,000 for a broken transmission on Sylvia's vehicle. I slide over a corresponding bank statement from the deactivated joint credit card. Sylvia's vehicle never went to a mechanic. That $2,000 paid for the custom display cases designed to hold healing crystals. Every crisis you invented was a smokescreen to funnel my earnings into her vanity project. Over 3 years, I gave you $42,000, I say. I point to the highlighted sum at the bottom of the final page. I make sure their eyes follow my finger to the exact figure. The number sits there, undeniable and permanent. It represents the hours I spent tracking freight containers while they shopped for imported marble. You spent it on her. I tap the paper firmly. Every single dime. You missed my graduation because you were celebrating the daughter who just bankrupted you. The truth detonates. It is a bomb going off at our table. The explosion leaves no physical casualties, only exposed secrets and shattered egos. The narrative they constructed to manipulate me is dead. The illusion of Hector being a victim of global markets is dead. The myth of Bianca being a successful entrepreneur is dead. The facade they built to excuse their terrible choices has been reduced to ashes in front of an audience of strangers dining in Beverly Hills. I sit back in my chair and observe the wreckage. My posture is relaxed. I take a sip of my black coffee. The dark roast is bitter and perfect. The power dynamic in our family has permanently shifted. They are no longer the authorities dictating terms. They are exposed frauds facing imminent eviction. The air in the booth feels suddenly thin, and I wait to see which one of them will scramble first to pick up the pieces of their broken pride. The seconds following the presentation of the spreadsheet feel stretched and fragile. I watch the 3 people sitting across from me process the undeniable proof of their own deceit. The silence shatters when Sylvia decides to make the first move. She does not offer an apology. She does not express remorse for draining my bank account. Instead, she launches a chaotic, desperate attempt to rewrite reality. Sylvia pushes her appetizer plate away. She looks at the documents, then glares at me. The artificial sweetness she wore at the beginning of the meal burns away, revealing raw defense mechanisms. She starts crying again, but these are not the calculated, delicate tears she used earlier. These are thick, ugly tears of genuine panic. "How could you do this to us?" Sylvia wails. Her voice is loud, lacking all the refined decorum appropriate for a Beverly Hills dining room. You dug through our private records. You spied on your own family. You brought us to this fancy restaurant just to humiliate us in public. You are cruel, Audrey. You are a cold and cruel daughter. Sylvia operates on a very specific psychological frequency. When she is caught in a lie, she immediately flips the board. She cannot handle the burden of accountability, so she constructs a narrative where she becomes the victim of an elaborate plot. She is actively trying to convince herself that I am the villain for discovering the financial theft rather than acknowledging she is the thief. She points a trembling finger at the spreadsheet. We did it to help her get a start. Sylvia sobs, gesturing wildly toward Bianca. Your sister needed an investment. You were always so independent. You never needed us. You figured everything out on your own since you were a teenager. You did not need our help, so why are you punishing us for helping her? She weaponizes my self-reliance. Because I did not demand her attention as a teenager, she decided she owed me zero loyalty as an adult. She frames my ability to survive without them as an excuse for their blatant favoritism and financial abuse. Bianca finally processes the gravity of the paperwork sitting next to the Wagyu beef. The commercial lease default notice means her landlord is locking the doors of the Crystal Boutique. The home equity foreclosure means her parents cannot write another check to save her business. The unlimited funding source has evaporated. Bianca pushes her heavy wooden chair back. The legs scrape harshly against the polished floor. Her face flushes a deep red. She does not look at Hector to ask how he lost their house. She does not look at Sylvia to ask why they lied. She looks directly at me. You are so jealous of me, Bianca screams. She leans over the table. Her acrylic nails dig into the white linen. You have always been jealous of me. You sit in your boring corporate office all day and you hate that I am trying to build a brand. You did this on purpose to ruin my business. You are vindictive. You want me to fail because you are miserable. Bianca lived her entire life inside a padded room built by Hector and Sylvia. When she crashed her first car at age 17, Hector blamed the rain and bought her a newer model the next day. When she dropped out of community college, Sylvia blamed the professors for being too demanding. Bianca never developed the muscle memory required to process failure or accept responsibility. Therefore, she interprets this financial reality check as a malicious personal attack. She truly believes my spreadsheet is an act of jealousy rather than an act of forensic accounting. She feels she is entitled to my $42,000 simply because she exists. I look at her flushed face. I do not defend my career. I do not explain the global logistics empire I manage. I let her tantrum hang in the air, pathetic and hollow. Hector realizes the female members of his family are spiraling out of control. He sees the panic taking over the booth. He needs to reassert his dominance. He needs to pull the power dynamic back to his side of the table before it is permanently lost. He raises his right hand and brings his palm down hard against the tabletop. The silverware clatters against the china plates. The crystal water glasses shake, spilling droplets onto the linen. Enough, Hector orders. His voice booms through the quiet dining room. Several patrons at nearby tables stop their discreet conversations and turn their heads in our direction. A waiter pauses mid-step near the bar. Hector points his index finger squarely at my chest. You will respect your parents, he dictates. His face is pale, but his eyes are wild with the desperation of a cornered animal. I am still your father. I do not care what pieces of paper you dragged in here to show off. You do not talk to your mother that way. You do not interrogate us about our business. You have the money. You are going to write the check right now and fix this family. Hector builds his authority on volume alone. He believes that if he speaks the loudest, he dictates the reality of the room. During his real estate days, he intimidated contractors by shouting them down over minor delays. He used aggression to mask his lack of attention to detail. He is trying to use that exact same tactic on me right now. He thinks he can bully me into writing a $50,000 check to save his fragile ego. This is the layer of conflict where the toxic system fights hardest to survive. They are cornered. The evidence of their financial ruin is sitting right in front of them, yet they coordinate a chaotic, three-pronged attack to gaslight me into submission. Sylvia uses emotional guilt. Bianca uses childish insults. Hector uses patriarchal intimidation. They are throwing every weapon they possess at my defenses, hoping something breaks through. But their weapons do not work anymore. I do not flinch when Hector hits the table. I do not break eye contact. I do not raise my voice to match his volume. I sit back in the leather booth. I cross my arms over my silk blouse. I look at them with the cold, calculating eyes of a logistics director analyzing a failed vendor contract. A restaurant manager in a dark suit approaches our table, alerted by the sudden noise. He looks highly concerned. He asks politely if everything is all right and if we need assistance. Everything is perfectly fine, I tell him. My voice is smooth, level, and entirely devoid of panic. We are just finishing a difficult family discussion. We will keep our voices down. The manager nods hesitantly. He glances at Hector, then steps away, returning to his post near the front entrance. I turn my attention back to my family. They are out of breath. Their chests are heaving. They are waiting for me to crack under the pressure of their coordinated attack. You can scream all you want, I say. I lean forward, resting my forearms on the table. I lower my voice, forcing them to stop talking and strain to listen to me. You can call me cruel. You can call me vindictive. You can slam your hands on the table and demand respect until your throat goes raw. I reach out and tap my index finger firmly against the notice of default sitting in the center of the table. But your screaming will not stop the bank on Friday morning. Your tears will not pay the commercial landlord in West Hollywood. Your anger will not convince the county clerk to halt the foreclosure auction. The reality of the deadline hits them again, stripping away the adrenaline of their outburst. The manufactured rage drains out of Hector's face, replaced once more by sheer terror. Bianca slowly sits back down, her mouth clamped shut. Sylvia covers her face with her hands, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. You are out of time, I state. You are out of leverage. You have burned through every bridge and every dollar you had access to. You are 72 hours away from having your possessions thrown onto the front lawn by a county sheriff. I pause, letting the brutal image of an eviction settle deeply into their minds. I watch the fight completely leave their bodies. I am the only person in the world who can save you right now, I say. Hector looks up at me. His eyes are wide. He swallows hard. He realizes the patriarchal performance failed. He realizes he holds zero power in this negotiation. And I have a proposition. The word proposition hangs over the white linen tablecloth. It acts as a physical weight, pressing down on the three people sitting across from me. The chaotic energy that fueled their screaming match evaporates. The silence returns, but it is no longer the silence of defiance. It is the silence of surrender. Hector looks up. The redness in his face begins to fade. A glimmer of desperate hope sparks in his eyes. He hears the word proposition, and his mind automatically translates it into salvation. He is a man who spent his career negotiating bad deals. He assumes we are about to haggle over interest rates. He thinks I am going to offer him a standard personal loan with a structured repayment plan. You will give us the money, Hector whispers. His voice is fragile. It is the voice of a man begging for his life. No, I reply. I will not give you a dime. The spark of hope in his eyes extinguishes instantly. Confusion replaces it. He looks at the documents scattered on the table, trying to decipher my endgame. If I am not giving them money, he cannot fathom how I plan to stop the bank. I reach into the manila folder for the final time. I withdraw a thick stack of premium legal paper. It is bound at the top corner with a heavy brass staple. I place it gently on the table, right on top of the ruined credit card statements and the default notices. This contract was drafted by my corporate attorney yesterday afternoon, I explain. It is ironclad and ready for signature. I am not going to write you a check so you can deposit it into your account. If I hand you liquid cash, you will find a way to squander it. You will pay the arrears, and then you will borrow against the equity again within 6 months to fund another one of Bianca's delusions. I am removing your access to the capital entirely. Hector stares at the legal document. His hands remain frozen in his lap. What are you talking about? He asks. I am going to purchase the $50,000 debt directly from the bank, I state. I watch the tension leave my father's shoulders. He lets out a long, shaky breath. He hears the phrase, purchase the debt, and assumes his problem is solved. In his mind, I am simply replacing the bank as his creditor. He believes he is trading a ruthless financial institution for a compliant daughter. He thinks he can manipulate me later when the monthly payments come due. A relieved smile twitches at the corner of his mouth. Thank you, Audrey. Hector says, his voice thick with sudden emotion. You have no idea what this means to us. We will pay you back every month. We will draft a payment schedule tonight. I hold up my right-hand palm facing outward. The gesture stops his gratitude dead in its tracks. You misunderstand the arrangement, I say. You are not going to pay me back. You are never going to make another mortgage payment in your life. In exchange for satisfying the bank debt on Friday morning, you are going to sign over the deed to the property. Today. The air leaves the dining room. Sylvia stops breathing. Bianca stares at me with a blank, uncomprehending expression. Hector looks as though the floor beneath our booth has just opened up to swallow him. He opens his mouth to speak, but his vocal cords fail. I lay out the brutal mathematical reality of their situation. I speak slowly, ensuring every syllable lands with perfect clarity. Your house is currently appraised at $800,000, I say. You own it free and clear, minus the $50,000 home equity line you gambled away. That means you are sitting on $750,000 of trapped equity. I tap the contract with my index finger. But trapped equity is useless when you have zero liquid cash and terrible credit. You are 72 hours away from a public foreclosure auction. If the bank seizes the property on Friday, they will liquidate it at a fraction of its market value to recover their loan. They will tack on exorbitant legal fees, auction costs, and late penalties. By the time the dust settles, your equity will be decimated. Your credit score will be ruined for a decade. You will be evicted by county sheriffs, and you will not have enough cash to secure a rental apartment anywhere in Southern California. I lean back in my chair and fold my hands in my lap. My offer is a legal transfer of ownership. I continue. I will wire $50,000 to the bank tomorrow morning. I will clear the default. I will save the structure. But I will do it as the sole legal owner of the property. I will own the house outright. The concept of property ownership is the core foundation of my father's identity. During the early 2000s, California real estate was a gold rush. Hector rode that wave, buying and selling commercial plots. He always preached that a man who does not own land is a man who holds no power. The deed to that 4-bedroom colonial house was his anchor. It was the only tangible proof that his career actually mattered. Now his eldest daughter is demanding that anchor as payment for his incompetence. You want to take our house, Sylvia whispers. Her voice is trembling, brittle with shock. You want to steal our home. I look directly at my mother. I do not let her play the victim. I am not stealing anything, I correct her. The bank is stealing it on Friday. I am offering you a buyout. It is extortion, Hector gasps, finally finding his voice. His face flushes a dark, dangerous red. You are trying to extort your own parents for an $800,000 asset over a $50,000 debt. No judge in the state would allow this. I expected this reaction. I anticipated the legal bluff. My attorney already reviewed the statutes, I reply smoothly. It is a standard deed in lieu of foreclosure transaction between consenting adults. You are facing imminent financial ruin. I am offering debt relief in exchange for the asset. It is entirely legal, and it is the only option you have left on the board. I watch Hector process the trap. He runs the calculations in his head. He tries to find a loophole. He tries to think of a friend he can call a broker he can hustle, or a credit card he can max out. He searches his mental database for a rescue strategy, but the database is empty. He burned his bridges years ago. He exhausted his credit lines. He knows I am stating a factual reality. If I sign this, Hector says, his voice dropping to a harsh whisper. If I give you the deed, where do we go? Are you throwing us out on the street? He asks the question because he is projecting his own ruthlessness onto me. If he held this kind of leverage over a failing business partner, he would evict them without a second thought. He assumes I operate with the same lack of empathy. You will stay exactly where you are, I tell him. You will live in the house. But the dynamic changes tonight. You will no longer be homeowners. You will be my tenants. The word tenants hangs in the air heavier than the word proposition. You will live there under my rules, I continue. I will cover the property taxes. I will cover the structural maintenance. You will have a safe, secure roof over your heads for the rest of your lives, but you will never again have the ability to leverage that property. You will never be able to take out a loan against the walls. The house goes into an irrevocable trust in my name. Hector stares at the legal document. The ink on the signature line seems to mock him. He is a man who spent his life obsessed with ownership, and he is being asked to voluntarily demote himself to a renter in his own living room. Sylvia shakes her head rapidly. Her pearl necklace rattles against her collarbone. Hector, do not sign it, she pleads. Do not give her the house. We can figure something else out. We can call the bank in the morning and ask for an extension. They will not grant an extension, I say, cutting off her false hope. You ignored their notices for 90 days. The negotiation window is closed. Bianca, who has remained silent during the legal explanation, suddenly sits up straight. The fog of her ignorance finally lifts. She understands the implications of the contract sitting on the table. She realizes that if I own the house, I control who lives inside it. She realizes her free ride is tied to a deed that is about to change hands. The panic that infected her parents finally reaches her. And as Bianca opens her mouth to speak, the final, most brutal condition of my proposition is about to be revealed. Sylvia inhales sharply. The sound is a ragged gasp that echoes across the polished mahogany table. She brings her hand up to her chest, her fingers clutching the fabric of her stiff cocktail dress. You want to steal our house? She whispers. I do not let the accusation linger in the air. I correct her cleanly and immediately. I am saving you from the street, I state. I lean forward and tap the surface of the legal contract. I outline the parameters of their new reality. I explain that they will live in the property rent-free for the rest of their natural lives. I will pay the county property taxes every year. I will cover the homeowner insurance premiums. I will pay for the plumbers, the electricians, and the roofers. They will never have to worry about the structural integrity of their shelter. They will have absolute physical security, but they will have zero financial power. Growing up, Hector used the house as a weapon of control. Whenever an argument broke out, he would stand in the center of the living room, stamp his foot on the hardwood floor, and declare that under his roof, his rules were absolute law. He demanded total obedience because his name was on the mortgage. He equated property ownership with moral superiority. If you lived within his walls, you owed him your submission. Now I am taking the walls. I slide my gaze away from my mother and lock eyes with my younger sister. Bianca is staring at me in pure horror. The fog of her ignorance has completely burned away. She understands that the protective shield her parents held over her is currently dissolving into dust. She lived in the master suite upstairs since she turned 18. When I left for college, Hector and Sylvia renovated the largest room in the house specifically for her. They installed a walk-in closet and a private bathroom. She treated the residence like a luxury hotel with complimentary maid service. She never bought her own groceries. She never contributed to a utility bill. She operated under the assumption that the master suite belonged to her by divine right. But here are the conditions for the transfer, I say, keeping my voice perfectly level. The property goes into an irrevocable trust in my name. I am the sole trustee and the sole beneficiary. Bianca is legally barred from ever using the structure as collateral for any future business ventures. She will never possess the authority to borrow against the equity. I watch the blood drain from Bianca's face. I deliver the final strike. Furthermore, my financial support to Bianca is zero. I outline the new residential arrangement. I explain that if she wishes to remain on the premises, she will sign a standard California residential lease agreement. She will pay me market rate rent on the first day of every month. The funds will be deposited directly into my corporate holding account. I will not accept partial payments. I will not accept promises. If she misses a month, I will initiate formal eviction proceedings on the second day. The Beverly Hills dining room feels as quiet as a tomb. The waiter who previously serviced our table stands near the bar, keeping a wide berth from our booth. The ambient jazz music provides a surreal soundtrack to the dismantling of a family dynasty. Let us look deeper into the mechanics of this contract. I point to the second page of the legal document. I explain the exact parameters of the irrevocable trust. I make it clear that this is not a gentle agreement based on trust. The deed transfer will be recorded with the county clerk by noon tomorrow. I have a notary public on standby at my attorney's office. Once the ink dries, Hector and Sylvia forfeit all legal rights to modify the property. They cannot take out a second mortgage. They cannot sell the land. They cannot even authorize major renovations without my express written consent. I am legally severing their ability to make financial decisions regarding the asset. I watch Hector absorb this specific detail. For a man whose entire self-worth is tied to his ability to manage real estate, this is the ultimate humiliation. I am treating him the way a court treats an incompetent ward. I am stepping in to manage his affairs because he has proven he poses a clear and present danger to his own survival. Sylvia finally speaks again. Her voice is barely a whisper, hollowed out by the sheer force of the reality check. "Audrey," she says, looking up at me with red, swollen eyes. "What about family? What about Grace?" I look at my mother. "Grace is what I gave you for 3 years," I reply. "Grace was the $42,000 I wired you while I ate cheap noodles in a peeling apartment. Grace was the patience I showed when you missed my graduation. You spent my grace. You exhausted the account. Now we operate on contracts." The transition from a family bound by emotional manipulation to a family bound by strict legal documents is jarring. But it is necessary. I am sterilizing the wound. By removing the emotional leverage, I am protecting my own future. They can no longer weaponize their love or their approval, because my approval of their living situation is now dictated by a signed lease and a recorded deed. Bianca opens her mouth. She tries to form a word, but her brain short-circuits. The concept of paying rent to her own sister is an alien language she cannot translate. For her entire life, she believed she was the main character of the family narrative. She believed my sole purpose was to serve as a background extra, a reliable worker bee, whose only function was to generate the pollen she consumed. Now the background extra owns the hive. She will have to get a job. She will have to set an alarm clock. She will have to stand on her own 2 feet, and she will have to do it while living under a roof owned by the sister she always viewed as inferior. I turn my attention back to Hector. He is looking down at the contract drafted by Marcus. His hands are trembling so violently that the ice in his water glass rattles. The physical manifestation of his defeat is difficult to watch, but I do not look away. I study him. He realizes the trap he built for himself. The architecture of his ruin is entirely his own design. He took the home equity line. He signed the guarantor paperwork. He ignored the default notices. He cornered himself, and I am simply closing the door. If he says no to my proposition, he retains his pride for exactly 3 more days. Then the county sheriff arrives at his front door with a padlock. He and Sylvia will be homeless by the weekend. They will have to pack their possessions into trash bags and find a cheap motel on the outskirts of the city. His reputation will be publicly destroyed. If he says yes to my proposition, he secures his physical survival. He keeps his address. He keeps his neighborhood. But he surrenders all his financial power to the daughter he spent 26 years ignoring. He hands me the crown. More importantly, he can never enable his golden child again. He will have to sit in his living room and watch his favorite daughter pay rent to the child he discarded. It is a checkmate so absolute it defies argument. There is no loophole. There is no middle ground. I do not offer a compromise. I hold all the capital and he holds nothing but a ticking clock. Hector reaches into the inner pocket of his suit jacket. He pulls out a heavy silver pen. He clicks the top. The sound echoes sharply. He hovers the metal tip over the signature line. The weight of his entire life, his legacy, and his failures culminates in this single stroke of ink. He has to choose between his ego and his shelter. He opens his mouth, his throat working dryly. He looks at Sylvia, searching for a rescue that does not exist. Sylvia just stares at her lap, defeated by the math. But Bianca is not defeated by the math. Bianca does not understand the math. Bianca only understands that her luxury ride is coming to a violent halt. The shock wearing off, the entitlement rushes back in to fill the void. Her face twists into a mask of pure, unadulterated fury. She grabs the edge of the heavy mahogany table. Her knuckles turn white. She is preparing to launch a counterattack, completely oblivious to the fact that her father's survival rests entirely on my mercy. She is about to force a confrontation that will tear the remaining fabric of this dinner to shreds. Bianca shatters the fragile silence. She slams both of her hands flat against the white tablecloth. The silverware jumps. The crystal water glasses clink together. The sheer force of her movement knocks her smartphone onto the floor, but she does not bend down to retrieve it. Her face contorts into a mask of pure panic and rage. She realizes that the invisible safety net she relied upon her entire life is gone. "You cannot do this to me," Bianca screams. Her voice echoes off the polished mahogany walls. It is a piercing, high-pitched sound that slices straight through the ambient jazz music. At the adjacent tables, wealthy patrons stop eating. Industry executives lower their wine glasses. A hush falls over our section of the dining room as people turn their heads to witness the spectacle. "That is my inheritance," Bianca yells, pointing a trembling finger at the legal document resting in front of our father. "You are stealing my inheritance." For her entire life, Bianca viewed the colonial house as her personal trust fund. She operated under the strict belief that Hector and Sylvia would eventually downsize, sell the property, and hand her the surplus capital to fund her lifestyle indefinitely. She treated their equity as her own future bank account. The concept of working for a paycheck never applied to her because she assumed that house would always be there to catch her when she fell. I do not raise my voice to match her hysteria. I do not look around to apologize to the staring patrons. I lean forward, keeping my posture rigid and my gaze locked directly onto my sister. "What inheritance?" I ask. My voice drips with ice. The cold delivery forces her to stop yelling and listen to the math. "Dad just gave your inheritance to a commercial landlord in West Hollywood," I state. "He took the equity you thought belonged to you, and he handed it to a property management firm to buy imported marble countertops for a storefront you never even opened on time. You spent your inheritance on essential oils and aesthetic lighting." Bianca stares at me, her mouth opening and closing. "Your inheritance is zero," I say. "The bank owns it now, and by Friday morning you will own nothing." The brutal reality of the numbers finally penetrates her entitlement. She looks at Hector for confirmation. She expects her father to roar to her defense, to bang his fist on the table, and declare that I am lying. She expects the patriarch to fix the universe and restore her future. Hector does not roar. He does not even look at her. He keeps his eyes glued to the default notice sitting next to his empty dinner plate. Sylvia breaks down. She reaches across the leather booth and grabs Hector by the sleeve of his suit jacket. Her manicured fingers dig into the dark fabric. She is shaking her head frantically, her pearl necklace rattling against her collarbone. "Hector, do not sign it," Sylvia pleads. Her voice is thick with tears and desperation. "Please, there must be another way. We can call Richard. We can ask him for a short-term loan. We can call my brother. We just need a few days to figure this out. Do not let her take the house." She is listing ghosts. Richard is an old real estate buddy who stopped returning Hector's phone calls 5 years ago when the market shifted. Her brother is a retired teacher living on a fixed pension in Nevada, who has not spoken to Sylvia since she insulted his wife at a wedding a decade ago. Sylvia is scrambling through a mental Rolodex of burned bridges and empty connections. She refuses to accept that they are entirely isolated. Hector slowly pulls his arm away from his wife. He reaches into his pocket and pulls out his smartphone. He taps the screen to wake it up. He looks at the lock screen. He has 4 new email notifications. They are all marked urgent from the regional bank handling his home equity line of credit. He looks at the bank notices on his digital screen. He looks down at the printed default notice on the table. He looks at the ironclad contract I placed in front of him. The bravado he carried into this restaurant is extinguished. The arrogance that defined his entire personality for decades evaporates into the dim lighting of the room. He is a broken man, defeated by his own hubris. He realizes that every lie he told himself, every corner he cut, and every warning sign he ignored has led him directly to this booth. He has no friends left to call. He has no credit left to leverage. He is out of moves. "Where do I sign?" Hector asks. His voice is barely a whisper. It sounds like dry leaves scraping across concrete. No, Sylvia sobs. She buries her face in her cloth napkin, crying quietly into her hands. Bianca cannot handle the transfer of power. She cannot bear to witness her father surrender to the sister she deemed inferior. The reality that she will now have to sign a lease agreement and pay rent to me is a psychological burden her fragile ego refuses to carry. She stands up so fast that her heavy wooden chair tips backward. It hits the polished hardwood floor with a loud, sharp crack. The restaurant manager takes a step toward our table, signaling 2 security staff members near the front door. Bianca does not pick up the chair. She does not say goodbye. She turns on her heel and marches away from the table. She storms out of the restaurant, pushing past the host stand and shoving the heavy glass doors open. She marches out into the Beverly Hills night, realizing her free ride is permanently over. She leaves her parents behind to face the bill and the consequences of the debt she created. I watch her disappear down the sidewalk. I turn my attention back to the table. I slide the contract across the linen cloth until it sits directly under Hector's hands. I point to the bottom of the final page. I indicate the blank line positioned next to my printed name. "Sign there," I instruct him. And initial the bottom corner of the trust addendum. Hector picks up his heavy silver pen. His hand is trembling so severely that he struggles to grip the metal barrel. He presses the ink to the paper. He signs his name. His signature, usually a bold and sweeping script meant to convey authority, is messy and rushed. The letters are jagged and uneven. He initials the corner. He sets the pen down. The transfer of power is complete. I reach across the table and take the paper. I inspect the signature to ensure it is legible and legally binding. I carefully slide the contract back into the unmarked manila folder. I close the cover. I place the folder inside my designer tote bag. I have secured the asset. I own the roof over their heads. I stand up. I smooth the front of my tailored navy blazer. Hector remains slumped in the leather booth, staring at his empty hands. Sylvia continues to weep softly into her napkin. They look like 2 strangers who just survived a shipwreck, stranded on an island they no longer control. I reach into my jacket pocket and retrieve my wallet. I slide out a heavy black American Express card. I drop it onto the center of the table. It lands with a soft thud right next to the remaining slices of Wagyu beef and the empty crystal glasses. The card will cover the entire dinner, the imported water, and a generous tip for the waiter who had to endure my family. "Marcus will handle the transfer tomorrow," I say. I do not wait for a response. I turn and walk away from the table. I move through the dining room, my heels clicking softly against the floor. I exit the restaurant and hand my valet ticket to the attendant on the curb. The cool ocean air hits my face. I should feel a sense of ultimate victory. I secured my financial boundaries and neutralized the toxic dynamic that defined my childhood. The deed is mine. The legal war is won. But as the valet pulls my sleek black sedan up to the curb, a new realization settles into my mind. Securing the deed on paper is clean and clinical. Enforcing the new reality in the physical world is an entirely different battle. I am now the landlord to 2 hostile parents and an entitled sister who just stormed off into the night. They reside in a property I have not stepped foot inside for 3 years. To formalize the trust and finalize the new homeowner insurance policies, my legal team requires a comprehensive interior inspection of the premises. I cannot hire a proxy. I have to go to the house. I have to unlock the front door and walk through the rooms of my childhood. I have to face the physical wreckage they are hiding behind closed doors, and I know Bianca is not going to surrender her master suite without a vicious fight. I park my rental car in the driveway of the four-bedroom colonial house at 9 in the morning on Friday. The Southern California sky is a brilliant, unforgiving blue. A white commercial van pulls up to the curb behind me. A licensed property appraiser steps out holding a digital tablet and a laser measuring device. I hired him to conduct the interior inspection required to underwrite the new homeowner insurance policy. I step onto the concrete walkway. I do not knock on the heavy oak door. I turn the brass knob and push it open. Hector is sitting in the living room armchair. He is wearing faded denim jeans and a plain gray shirt. The tailored suits and the aggressive posture are gone. He does not stand up when I cross the threshold. He watches the appraiser walk past him to measure the square footage of the dining room. My father spent his entire adult life cultivating an image of undisputed authority within these walls. He used to host lavish holiday parties here, pouring expensive scotch for his neighbors, boasting about his real estate portfolio. Today, he sits in silence while a stranger measures the perimeter of a house he no longer owns. I leave the appraiser on the ground floor and walk up the carpeted staircase. I navigate the hallway and stop in front of the double doors leading to the master suite. I turn the handle. Bianca is sitting on the floor of her bedroom. The space is a disaster of failed ambition. Cardboard boxes are stacked against the walls. The boxes are overflowing with unsold inventory from Luminous Quartz Wellness. The commercial landlord in West Hollywood locked the doors to the boutique on Wednesday evening, forcing her to pack her aesthetic packaging, her amethyst geodes, and her imported oils into the back of her car. Her status as a chief executive officer evaporated in less than 48 hours. She looks up at me. Her eyes are red and swollen. She is wearing a pair of old sweatpants. The designer silk blouses are crumpled in a pile near her closet. She expects me to gloat. She expects me to stand over her and deliver a triumphant speech about my victory. I do not gloat. I open my leather briefcase and extract a standard California residential lease agreement. I step over a box of crystal healing journals and place the contract on her unmade bed. Your rent is $2,000 a month, I state. The first payment is due in 30 days. Sign the last page or pack your clothes and vacate the premises by Monday morning. Bianca stares at the legal document. The concept of trading her own labor for shelter is a foreign language she is being forced to learn in real time. She reaches for a pen resting on her nightstand. Her hand shakes as she scratches her signature onto the tenant line. She binds herself to the rules of the real world. I take the contract, place it back into my briefcase, and walk out of the room. The aftermath of that Friday morning is swift and decisive. Marcus executes the wire transfer. $50,000 lands in the holding account of the regional bank. The default is cleared. The foreclosure auction is canceled. By Tuesday afternoon, the county clerk officially records the deed. The property title is transferred into the name of my irrevocable trust. I secure the asset under my sole jurisdiction. The financial rot that plagued my family for decades is sterilized. The boundaries are drawn in concrete and enforced by property law. In Los Angeles, the new reality settles over my family like a heavy winter freeze. Bianca realizes that a high school diploma and a failed LLC do not translate into a lucrative corporate career. She applies for administrative roles, but her resume is blank. Her entitlement does not pass the screening interviews. 2 weeks later, she submits an application to a national coffee chain. She puts on a green apron. She stands behind a register for 8 hours a day, steaming milk and sweeping floors for minimum wage. On the first day of the following month, my phone chimes with a notification from my banking portal. A digital transfer of $2,000 clears into my holding account. The sender is Bianca Ramirez. She pays her rent. Hector and Sylvia adapt to a life stripped of grand illusions. They cancel their expensive country club memberships. They stop hosting catered dinner parties. They learn to navigate the aisles of discount grocery stores. They live quietly within the constraints of their actual Social Security checks and their meager remaining savings. They never ask me for a single dollar again. They do not call me with fabricated emergencies. They know the answer is already written in the legal trust that dictates their survival. The power dynamic is permanently settled. I return to Silicon Valley and step fully into my power as an executive. I do not look over my shoulder. I direct global shipping routes, optimize international freight logistics, and secure vendor contracts that drive millions of dollars in revenue for my firm. I earn the respect of my peers through intellect, strategy, and unyielding discipline. 6 months after the deed transfer, I close on a mid-century modern home tucked into the hills of San Jose. The architecture features clean lines, expansive glass windows, and a cantilevered deck overlooking the valley. I furnish the space with original art and custom furniture. I do not rely on a bank loan to secure the property. I pay the down payment with the cash bonuses I earned through my own merit. I surround myself with a curated circle of friends, mentors, and industry colleagues. I host evening gatherings on my deck, serving vintage wine and discussing global markets. The people sitting at my table value my mind. They value my drive. They do not view me as a utility to be extracted. They do not measure my worth by the limit on my credit card. I stand on my balcony one evening watching the city lights flicker to life below. I think back to that blistering May afternoon in the university parking lot. I remember the sharp sting of looking at the empty seats in row F. I remember the sound of the mimosa brunch playing through the phone speaker. The empty seats at my graduation no longer haunt me. They do not represent a trauma I have to carry. They were the catalyst. That absence was the spark that forced me to stop begging for a place at their table. If they had shown up to the ceremony, I might have spent another decade playing the role of the quiet, obedient safety net. I might have drained my potential to subsidize their comfort. Their betrayal set me free. It forced me to build my own empire instead. I turn away from the view and walk back into my living room. I feel a profound, unshakable peace. But as I sort through the mail resting on my kitchen island, my hands stop moving. Amid the glossy magazines and corporate correspondence, there is a plain white envelope. The return address is the 4-bedroom colonial house in Los Angeles. I recognize the handwriting immediately. The jagged, uneven script belongs to Hector. He has not spoken to me since the day he signed the deed in the Beverly Hills restaurant. He has mailed his property tax documents to Marcus. He has communicated solely through my legal counsel. This envelope bypasses the firewall. It is a direct transmission from the man who traded his kingdom for a bailout. I stare at the sealed flap. I know that opening this letter will require me to make one final definitive choice. It will force me to confront the last lingering ghost of my childhood and dictate exactly how I walk away from the Ramirez family forever. I hold the plain white envelope under the recessed lighting of my kitchen island. My thumb traces the jagged ink of Hector's handwriting. I slide a metal letter opener under the flap and slice it open. I pull out a single sheet of paper. It is not an apology letter. It is not a demand for cash. It is a printed municipal water bill. Attached to the top left corner of the invoice is a square yellow sticky note. The note contains exactly 5 words. The upstairs toilet is running. It is signed with the single letter H. I stare at the yellow square of paper. A year ago, a running toilet would have been presented to me as a catastrophic family emergency. Hector would have called me at work during a critical meeting. He would have demanded $500 to hire a luxury plumbing service, blaming the national economy for his inability to fix a simple household leak. He would have weaponized the broken appliance to extract capital from my checking account. Today, he is simply submitting a routine maintenance request to his landlord. He is following the legal rules established by our residential lease agreement. The patriarch has fully surrendered his crown. He is not asking for liquid cash. He is asking for a repair covered under the terms of the trust. I pick up my smartphone, open a digital property management application, and schedule a local bonded plumber to visit the Los Angeles property on Tuesday morning. The entire transaction takes 40 seconds. I bill the repair invoice directly to the trust account. The minor crisis is handled without a single raised voice, without a single guilt trip, and without a single shed tear. The receipt of this envelope confirms that the war is truly over. The new power dynamic is permanent. I leave the water bill on the marble counter and walk toward the sliding glass doors of my living room. I step out onto the cantilevered wooden deck of my home. The night air in the hills of San Jose is crisp and cool. Millions of artificial lights blanket the valley floor below me. It is a sprawling grid of technology commerce and relentless forward motion. I rest my hands on the smooth metal railing and breathe in the quiet atmosphere. I have built a fortress of peace funded by my own intellect and defended by ironclad boundaries. I look out over the glowing city, and I speak directly to you. I want to explain the psychological mechanics of the machine I had to dismantle. When you grow up in a system designed to extract your resources, you spend years assuming your parents hate you. You analyze every missing birthday card, every dismissed achievement, and every empty seat at a graduation ceremony. You assume their absence is rooted in active malice. You think they are punishing you on purpose. It took me 26 years to understand the truth. Hector and Sylvia did not hate me. Hatred requires passion. Hatred requires focus and energy. What they felt for me was a profound, comfortable apathy. They did not see me as a daughter. They saw me as a utility. Think about the appliances operating in your kitchen right now. You do not love your refrigerator. You do not throw a party for it. You simply expect it to sit quietly in the corner, run efficiently in the background, and keep your food cold. You only pay attention to the refrigerator when the motor stops working and your comfort is threatened. That is exactly what I was to my family. I was the reliable generator. They never applauded my corporate promotions or my academic degrees because you do not applaud an appliance for doing its job. You just plug it in and drain the power. Bianca played an entirely different role. Bianca was the expensive artwork hanging in the center of their living room. They loved the idea of her. They loved the aesthetic she provided to their social circle. She was a status symbol they could display to the neighbors to prove they were successful parents raising a glamorous child. They poured all their financial capital into maintaining that artwork, even when the canvas started to tear and the frame began to rot. They funded her delusions of becoming a wellness entrepreneur because acknowledging her failure meant acknowledging their own failure. Many people would look at the legal contract I pushed across that restaurant table in Beverly Hills and call it an act of cruelty. They would say taking the deed to my childhood home was an act of cold vengeance. It was not vengeance. Vengeance is driven by raw emotion. Vengeance is setting a fire just to watch the other person burn. What I executed was a clinical extraction. It was the establishment of an unbreakable boundary. By purchasing the $50,000 debt and seizing the primary asset, I neutralized their ability to destroy themselves. I ironically protected them from their own financial ruin. They have a permanent secure roof over their heads. They will never face an eviction notice from a ruthless regional bank. Hector will never again have the leverage to gamble his shelter on a failed commercial lease. I provided them with a safety net, but I provided it entirely on my terms. I removed their emotional ammunition and replaced it with strict property law. I also forced my sister to join the real world. Bianca wakes up at 5 in the morning now. She ties a green apron around her waist and stands behind an espresso machine earning an hourly wage. She experiences the physical cost of money. When she transfers $2,000 to my holding account on the first of the month, she understands exactly how many hours of labor that sum represents. The Crystal Boutique is a distant memory, replaced by the honest reality of sweeping floors and serving customers. I did not ruin her life. I introduced her to it. Here is the truth about family. You cannot save people who are determined to drown holding onto a golden anchor. Hector and Sylvia were sinking fast. The water was rising over their heads, and they wanted to drag me down into the dark current with them, just to keep Bianca floating for a few more minutes. They rigged the family game from the moment I earned my first part-time paycheck. I tried to play by their rules for 3 long years. I tried to earn a permanent seat at their dinner table by paying the cover charge every time they asked. It never worked. The cost of admission just kept going up. Sometimes the only way to win a rigged game is to buy the board. I look into the camera. I want to ask you a final question. Have you ever had to take drastic measures to stop financial abuse in your own family? Have you ever realized that the people you loved unconditionally were just waiting for your next direct deposit? Tell me your story in the comments section below. I read every single one of them. You are not a bad person for closing the bank account. You are not cruel for demanding a return on your emotional investment. You do not owe your future to people who refuse to respect your present. Boundaries are not walls. They are the doors that keep the users out. Thank you for walking with me. I will see you in the next one. I stand on the balcony of my San Jose home. The city lights reflect in the glass of my sliding doors. The water bill sits on the counter inside. It is a quiet testament to a war that is finally over. I did not destroy my family. I dismantled the machine that was designed to destroy me. Looking back at the wreckage and the rebuilding, I walked away with 3 absolute truths. First, boundaries are not a punishment. They are your armor. When people are accustomed to extracting your resources, they will call your boundaries cruel. Let them. You cannot set yourself on fire to keep an entitled family warm. Second, you can never purchase respect. For 3 years, I believed that if I just paid enough bills and solved enough crises, they would finally see me. But respect is not a transaction. You do not owe your future to people who refuse to honor your present. Third, family is a title earned through mutual respect, not a lifetime lease granted by shared genetics. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for toxic people is to let them face the brutal consequences of their own actions. My parents have a secure roof over their heads, and my sister finally knows the value of a hard-earned dollar. I did not ruin their lives. I introduced them to reality. If you are sitting in the shadows right now, quietly funding someone else's delusion, it is time to cut the cord. Buy the board, change the locks, and build your own empire. Thank you for walking this journey with me. If this story resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button. I am Hazel, and you are listening to Hazel Tells Stories. I will see you in the next one.